Hey guys, thanks for joining us here at Salty Ginger Talk. If you're a returning listener, it's great to have you back. If you're new to the channel, really glad you joined us. Hope you like what you hear. You picked a great first episode. If this is your first episode, our guest today is an awesome lady. Her name is Regan Caruthers. She's going to talk about her upbringing, her education, her journey into the corporate world, and coming full circle to what she does now, which is teaches yoga and does some coaching and has written a book and her memoirs. Um, I can't I can't do justice to her thought processes or what she's experienced, so I'm not going to try. With that said, let's just bring Reagan on so we can hear her story because it's pretty awesome. Hey guys, thanks for joining us here at Salty Ginger Talk. If you're a returning listener, it's great to have you back. If you're new to the channel, really glad you joined us. Hope you like what you hear. You picked a great first episode. If this is your first episode, our guest today is an awesome lady. Her name is Regan Caruthers. She's going to talk about her upbringing, her education, her journey into the corporate world, and coming full circle to what she does now, which is teaches yoga and does some coaching and has written a book and her memoirs. Um, I can't I can't do justice to her thought processes or what she's experienced, so I'm not going to try. With that said, let's just bring Reagan on so we can hear her story because it's pretty awesome. So, Reagan, thanks for joining us here at Salty Ginger Talk.
Well, thank you. My mother was a ginger, so yeah.
Love it.
Not salty though. More
Another
more auburn. Though I guess it got a little salty towards the end.
Well, the salty is more about my language than it is about my hair. The ginger's definitely about being a redhead, but left to my
Oh,
own
I thought it
devices.
meant a little bit of, the white sprinkling in.
No,
Anyway,
that's life. That's me showing off my life experience.
well, thank you for having me. This is
Yeah,
going
we had a great conversation a couple of weeks ago, and I've been very excited to bring you on the channel. So, just as a precursor, and for anyone that might be tuning in for the first time on our podcast, we have people on that talk about the experiences they've had in their lives and what they've learned from them. And so, we don't do Instagram highlight reels at Salty Ginger Talk. We talk about real things that have happened to people. It's great to talk about the good things. It's great to celebrate the good things. Nothing wrong with that. But the reality is, most of what we learn and most of what makes us the people that we are is the adversity that we face and the lessons we learn as we work through those adversities. And so, what we do is we have folks come on that are willing to talk about what they've learned throughout their life. And your path has been super interesting, starting as a young lady, you had some challenges in your home life and went through school, went down the corporate road, were hugely successful from all outward appearances. And even then, you had lots of challenges and you've made choices to set up your life differently based on your values and based on your feelings. And I think there's tons of lessons for our audience to learn from you. So I've been very excited to have you on the podcast. So, with all that said, I was hoping you could start with just a high level. Here's how I started, and here's where I got to. And then we usually go back and we talk, we kind of do a deep dive on the important inflection points, the important lessons, et cetera, et cetera. But if you wouldn't mind, just give everyone a little background on who you are and what you're all about.
sure. So here's a little bit of the cliff notes, though that might age me right out of the gate. Um, I can't imagine who I would be without my early education. So at the age of 3, my clairvoyant, fascinating, but deeply troubled mother enrolled me in a school where we meditated every day and we did Tai Chi. Later, we would photograph our energy field with Carillion film, all the while learning Latin and algebra and reading Shakespeare. But meditation, learning how to cultivate that quiet presence, not only probably saved my life, but gave me, I don't know, resilience, I think. And Maxwell Maltz, who wrote the book Psychocybernetics, which I don't know if you've ever read it, but you should, that birthed the positive psychology movement. And he was a mentor of the founder of my school and served on the board. So the pedagogy really reflected his research. I don't know if you know who he was, but he was a plastic surgeon. And he got real curious because when he would heal somebody from some kind of disfigurement, some people would develop healthy self esteem, and others, it was as if nothing had changed.
Hmm.
So he was curious about that. And what he came to understand was that the story you tell yourself about yourself becomes your lived experience. So we sang songs in morning assembly all about the power we had to choose our thoughts, to choose our feelings, and to create meaning in our lives. So that mattered a lot to my inner life. And what I was also confronted with young, probably not dissimilar to my mother, though she never really talked about it, was I could see things other people didn't. I could hear things other people didn't, including, someone's inner dialogue. You're 7 years old. That's like the last thing you want to have access to. And it overwhelmed me. And one fateful day at the age of 9, I was downstairs tumbling and dancing, which was kind of my way of exiting the chaos. For my mother was a manic depressive, and she had a violent and emotionally disturbed partner. And I saw this entity, for lack of a better word, sitting on top of my washing machine. I know it sounds crazy, but it's the truth. And I just screamed out loud for it all to stop. I ran up the basement steps, terrified, screaming for it to stop. And it did. The veil came down. And I dedicated the rest of my young life to figuring out how to be normal and how to find safety, which meant I needed to be anywhere else. So social ascendancy, being popular, became my strategy because then I had sleepovers and safe places to be.
Mm.
Just was embracing convention. And part of that program, even though I had the program of my early education, was, that corporate ascendancy would lead to safety. I think a lot of people unconsciously believe that if they acquire enough stuff or acquire enough power or money, that somehow everything's going to be okay.
Mm.
Well, newsflash, it doesn't. That's not how it happened.
That's the truth.
Yeah. And I had a dramatic awakening at the age of 27. I was a junior exec in the publishing industry at a national sales meeting, not the ideal place for a spiritual awakening, but that's what happened. And in the middle of the night, I woke up. I was terrified before I opened my eyes. I knew someone was in my room. I could feel it. And I opened my eyes, and that same entity that I said a dramatic goodbye to, which looked like a man, just so your folks understand that. And I just literally sat up in bed, looked at him, and said, "Oh, it's you. It's only you. I'm not afraid of you." And I went back to sleep. And when I woke up the next morning, all I could feel was God's presence. And all I wanted to do was talk to my mom. This was a woman who, dated a king. And I mean, her life, when she would describe her young life, she would say, honey, people think I'm a pathological liar. But anyway, she had a power that she didn't know how to self-manage. And I just wanted to talk to her because I understood her. And I couldn't. The only person that I could reach by phone, because I was in San Francisco and home was St. Louis, was my stepfather, who was the epicenter of my trauma. And I just told him how much I loved him and that I forgave him. And I meant it. I mean, at the level of my cells.
Mm.
And he dropped the phone. I heard it kind of clunking around, and comes back and says, "Well, Blonde Beauty, I don't have an explanation for this, but a golden eagle just landed on the crabapple tree in the backyard." And then he exits the phone again. I hear it clunking around. He comes back. He said, "Well, I don't understand what's happening, but now there's a red fox looking up at the seagull." He's Comanche, Sicilian, a Scorpio, and an atheist. Great combination of. And
That's like triple word score in Scrabble.
yeah, pretty much. Definitely a 10. Got to get that Z. Anyway, in indigenous tradition, as you might know, the eagle represents the divine and the red fox represents a noble messenger. That was over 30 years ago. And this violent man, ever since that day, has been kind and gentle. So the energetic transmission, what I was holding, changed him. And I changed too. I left the corporate world. I conceived my first child, Connor. I soon was working at the HeartMath Institute, leading retreats and programs for business audiences, work that I thought was my life's work. Newsflash, that didn't quite work out the
Mm.
way I imagined. And in fact, my first day, I called my mother and told her that I thought I made a grave error. Anyway, returned to corporate life, excelled, worked in a lot of venture funded startups in the Valley in the ed tech sector, and did that until I didn't have to. And once I didn't have to, I returned truly to all that I know. Some of that included doing advanced yoga training, uh, becoming, if I had a shingle, it would be spiritual teacher, though I hate the word spiritual because what does that really mean?
Mm.
But I'm just trying to, share what I know, help people remember the truth of who they are, not the program, and live in greater integrity now than I probably ever have in my life.
Wow, I love that. There's so much in there for us to talk about. Going back to when I find it very interesting when you talk about a veil coming down. Like to me, I hear you saying I wanted to be someone. I was trying. Maybe a better way to say it is I was trying to be something different than what I was, because it seemed like you had really good experiences just being who you were. And so being able to see people's energies and being able to hear things and that other people couldn't, that seemed like it went really well for you up to a point. And then all of a sudden, um, this entity appears and that was like a tipping point for you. What do you think? Well, before that happened, did you enjoy that when you were a young lady, when you were a little girl? Like, did you have good experiences when those things were going on?
Oh, certainly. But I think I was always uncomfortable in that I had a power. I was connected to something that I didn't really understand. And I was also self aware enough to know or feel as if I could make anything happen. I could get anybody to do what I wanted.
Hmm.
And while that might sound great, when you're little, like you don't have the same capacity for reasoning, for turning something on and off or up or down, right? You're just this open vessel. And when I proclaimed at 9 for it all to stop, I think that was probably an accumulation. Yes, that moment with him on the washing machine in this fiery throne looking like a demon scared me, but I think it was cumulative. Yeah, and I think maybe unconsciously I felt like if I didn't turn this off, I'd end up like my mom.
Hmm. Yeah, that that makes sense. I just when you were talking about your great experience in your very early education in terms of meditation and singing and positive affirmations, that all sounds really good, right? But
Oh, yeah,
then,
that was fantastic, but that was not what my inner life was, right? I mean, that school was my safe place.
yeah,
the energy of the place, the freedom I had. I mean, I remember on a hot day in St. Louis at the school, we would walk to Forest Park, which was right across the street. And I don't know, probably a half a mile in was this beautiful waterfall. And the founder, was like, hey, you want to get wet? You want to swim? Great. Don't complain that you're wet because I don't have any towels. So we would, just go in and swim and come back to school dripping wet, picking mulberries off the trees. I don't know. I mean, it was idyllic for sure. And what I also didn't understand or appreciate, because it was all that I knew, was how profound the teachings were, like what I was learning, what was getting imprinted. I did ask my mom, it's funny, because as I got a little older at the school, friends in the neighborhood became, more important. And they all went to public school. And so I begged my mother to let me go to Riverbend Elementary because Nancy Bear went to Riverbend, my neighbor, and I just loved her and I just couldn't imagine my days without her. And so my mom, she was kind of a yes mom. So she was like, yeah, sure, go. And so I had literally at the magical grade school had just finished a report on Denmark, which I wrote all myself and illustrated and spoke about, their industries and agriculture. I mean, it was like a term paper. And I get to River Bend and, they put me in first grade because that was my age. And my mother's observing me with the principal. I mean, I can remember this like it happened yesterday. And I'm sitting down, at a little desk and I'm given a mimeograph. Oh, there I'm aging myself again. Mimeograph sheet of paper with a clown on it. And then at the very bottom of the piece of paper is like a dashed line to guide a phrase, of describing the clown. And I'm asked to color it. I mean, I felt demeaned. Like, are you kidding? Like, I felt disrespected.
Right. Yeah.
So I asked, to go and get a drink of water. And my mom and the principal are kind of like, how's it going? And I'm like, so I went a second day because there was a field trip to a bread factory. And then I returned to my magical school, never wanting to go to public school again, even though I did a little bit later. But anyway, yeah. So I guess, that contrast did let me know that what I was doing there was exceptional. Though
Yep.
that wouldn't have been my language, that wouldn't have been my word for it. But yeah.
Yeah. And you'd said your mom was, had some mental challenges and, her husband, your stepfather, was violent. Did you know that that was not normal? What maybe it was normal in your world. Did you know that that home life was not normal, or did you think, hey, this is just how things work in the world?
Oh no, because I had life before it
Mm,
that I remembered. And my father, my biological father, who I just saw on Sundays, definitely showed me, a different way. I mean, when he died, he was characterized as the greatest legal mind of the second half of the 20th century in St. Louis. Um, yeah, no, I knew. And in fact, part of my emotional tumult was the mourning of, I mean, when it was just mom and me, for a while, I mean, it was like magic. I mean, she was such a magical person. The energy of love that she could radiate out of her being is unlike anything I've ever known. I miss her so much because, I mean, she was a fascinating person, and I don't believe she was mentally ill. I think what her problem was is she didn't know how to regulate the energy that ran through her. We
mm.
characterize that as mental illness, but like any shaman would tell you when they visit a mental hospital, they find their people and what they see are, healers who can integrate the call because, what you're connected to energetically, whether you're a shaman or a healer or a mystic, requires a significant amount of self-regulation. And, she was drawn to the right things. She, introduced me to her guru at 7. She had the right books, but, she had a hard time sticking with anything. She lacked discipline. And that's one attribute in witnessing her and knowing of her magnificence and the tragedy that was her as well, that I was going to learn how to regulate a similar power that she had. And I was pretty conscious of that pretty early.
Do you think that contributed to your kind of putting the veil down and saying, hey, enough, I don't want to deal with this anymore, and then pursuing social ascension like you talked about? Do you think that was a way to try to demonstrate that you had that discipline that you saw lacking in your mother?
Yeah, though completely unconscious. I mean, I was 9 years
Hmm.
old.
Sure, yeah.
Um, but yes, but yes. And even, after my awakening at 27, I mean, had I confided in a mental health professional about what I experienced post awakening, I certainly would have been medicated, if not institutionalized.
Right.
Um, but I knew I wasn't crazy, and I trusted that whatever was happening to me, I don't know, I just found my way through it. And I mean, at night, in the middle of the night, in my sleep, I would wake up surrounded by similar energy to what I saw as a kid. And I know it's going to sound nuts, but it's the truth. I was pulled out of my body against my will. I would literally see myself lying in bed as I'm, traveling what seemed to be the ghetto of the universe. I mean, I was really tested and initiated. Kind of similar to, I mean, the analogy I have is like Luke Skywalker in the first Star Wars movie, not the shitty ones that came later, but those first 3 good ones. And when Yoda was training him to be a Jedi, which was about holding the light in the presence of darkness, right? And he's, in that portal, and Darth Vader is there, and everything that he is possibly afraid of, he's confronted with. And it's all a construction of his mind. Um, I went through a similar experience for about 2 years. And when I finally could greet all of it with unconditional love and radiate divine presence to it, guess what? It stopped visiting. And I haven't been visited since. And that was, yeah, over 30 years ago.
So, two questions on that. One pretty straightforward. Do you think that was or is, excuse me, your soul or your spirit that took that journey outside of your body? What do
Well,
you
it's
think?
well, it's me, just like the yoga tradition teaches. I mean, you're not your body and you're not your mind, you're the observer of both, right? And that consciousness, whether you call it a spirit or soul, doesn't really matter, is the part of you that's eternal, the part of you that lives on, and that's the part of me um, that was pulled out of my body against my will. And then after it all ended, I frankly learned, and again, there was no manual for this. There was
Yeah.
nobody to say, hey, um, but I learned how to exit my body at will and return to it. I mean, the yogis did that and taught that and spoke about that. And I don't do it now. It's not something you do for recreation. But what though some people do, I see, it's called remote viewing now. Like there's remote viewers on Instagram. Anyway, and good for them if that's what they want to do. But for me, the profundity of that was teaching me through direct experience that I am not my body. And when you understand that you're divine and eternal, well, one thing you don't do is fear, and the other thing you don't do is fear death. I mean, I find it so curious that the one thing we are all guaranteed to experience is probably the one thing most people are completely unprepared for
Mm,
and scared of. I mean, that's part of the program too, but yeah. And so then when I did face death just a few years ago, which we can talk about, I wasn't afraid. Everybody else was, my children, my husband, probably even my ex-husband, though he might not have admitted it. But yeah, I had no fear. I was completely surrendered to divine will. Um,
mm. And then my second question was, do you think those experiences ended because you were learning lessons and you had learned what you needed to learn, so that's why they ended?
yeah, I learned finally how not to be afraid,
Mm.
how to be that Jedi, right? How to embody the light in the presence of darkness, which, by the way, is what we're all here to learn. And again, another news flash, it's a pretty dark world, right?
Right.
And the ability for the average person to be manipulated, right? COVID, great example of that. Um, yeah, I mean, that's what you're here for. You're here to learn how to embody love no matter what, right? In the yoga tradition, that's called santosha, this idea that you can embody complete contentment regardless of external circumstance. So,
Well,
yeah.
you've been, I don't know if tested is the right word, but you've had significant things go I don't know if well is the right, go away that you were happy with in your life, and you've had significant things going away that you weren't happy with in your
Yeah.
life, right? You've had a second marriage, you've had a very serious near death experience. um how do you how did you apply those learnings in those situations? I'm asking because I want the listeners to kind of hear your method for dealing with those things, with all the background that you have, and knowing what you know of experience, what you experienced. What's your approach to those things when the reality of life, and I don't mean reality in a judgmental way, but like you're married and your husband has an affair and you wind up divorced. That's
Oh no, I'm the one that had the affair, not
you
him.
had you had the affair. Okay, fine.
Yeah.
There's an affair. I'm not interested in assessing judgment or blame.
Right. Right.
But it happened, right? That's a real thing, and that disrupts your day-to-day life. How do you go through? How do you apply what you learned in those situations?
Well, I mean, I think it evolved, certainly. I always had sort of a reference point, right? Back to the energy, for lack of a better word, that I knew when I awakened, right? A very similar energy to what I know I embodied as a kid. There's a felt sense to that quality of love, that quality of clarity. And even in dark moments, right? In a marriage that um, very much reflected my mother. I mean, it was the greatest love I've known and the greatest heartbreak. Uh, the challenges and terrible experiences that both my children, went through that I'm not going to, detail. I just always knew, and again, I'm not sure how to teach it. I just always knew that it would be okay, that somehow the quality of love that I knew how to access and embody would continue to lead me. This quiet voice that would tell me to do things. Um, yeah, I mean, it's God, but not God in the way God has been institutionalized, right? It's a quality of love that I just knew in time, if I stayed present with it, even as I made mistakes, right? That I could return to that, and that force, that quality of love, that intelligence would help me figure it out.
Mm. So kind of an inner faith or a faith in all things good and that good triumphs eventually if you're true to yourself and allow it to triumph.
Yes, and sometimes being true to yourself hurts other people.
Yeah.
I mean, one of the things that I'm very aware of in my first marriage, I mean, I fell in love with him, madly in love with him at 20 years old. Well, at 20, I hadn't done any of the work, right? I hadn't done any of the healing of my childhood trauma. So, of course, I would fall in love with someone that was in some ways a reflection of all of that.
Mm,
Um, and ultimately, instead of having at the time the courage or the self awareness to truly understand what was underneath my desire to exit it, yeah, but I figured it out, and finally exiting it through the affair is um, as painful as all that was. It finally gave me the courage to leave.
mm. And so like you've had several inflection points like that in your life where and I'm speaking in very broad generalities here, but from the outside, you've got a really good job, you're in a marriage with someone that you care about, you've got kids, like all of this, like it's the Norman Rockwell package, but that's not what it's actually like as you're experiencing it. You had the epiphany at the sales meeting when you were 27. I was 27, right? Not 29.
27.
Yep.
Mhm.
At 27, you've picked up stakes and moved back from what a lot of people view as an idyllic place where everyone wants to be, Silicon Valley, California, to St. Louis, Missouri, which is not probably, and I love St. Louis. I lived there for a year, so I know what a neat town it is and what it has to offer, but that's neither here nor there. In the grand scheme of things, St. Louis is not a top five destination when you talk about places, and you were there. It takes both awareness and courage to make those decisions. Um, and I think a lot of people struggle. I personally don't struggle. Like I'm with you. I know what's important to me, and I try to be true to myself. And sometimes that impacts other people. I don't want to impact other people, but like that's how it goes sometimes, right? And
Mhm.
so, um, what's your thought process as you're looking or assessing things in your life to say, I want to keep this the way it is, or I want to change this, or I want to pursue this? How do you assess those feelings to guide you?
Yeah, I don't do it that way. Ever
That's great.
since
Yeah. How do you do it?
ever since I was little, I was aware of this voice uh, that would tell me, to do things. And when I listened and did what it directed, good things would happen. And when I didn't, things were messy. I mean, I could talk about that all day. So, some highlights at the age of 14, just to give you a sense of how this works for me. I'm going to the orthodontist with my mother. I had braces twice. That was fun.
No
And that
kidding.
was, 70s braces when you'd go to get
Yes.
tightened and they're all,
You can pick
anyway.
up TV signals on them. I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
And it was quiet in the car, which was rare. And this voice said, "You need to repeat the ninth grade." So keep in mind, at my magical grade school, there was no grades. It was all self paced.
Hmm.
So, in ninth grade, I was basically almost 2 years ahead of myself. And, I was like 4 feet tall. All my peers, they're getting breasts and I'm not. I was bullied. Things were really intense at home, and school was no longer a safe place. School was a place where I was bullied, and it was horrible. And when I heard that, again, I'm 14. I didn't, or no, I was 13. I didn't really think much about it other than just recognize the truth. And so I looked to my mom who's driving. I said, Mom, I need to repeat the ninth grade. I need to, catch up with myself eventually. Might as well do it now. And she looked at me and she goes, Well, honey, I don't know a thing about that, but you have my full support. Um, 2 weeks, 3 weeks later, I'm giving a presentation to the Board of Education for my school district because there's no policy mechanism to allow a straight A student to repeat a grade. And I made a social emotional argument. Again, all guided by this presence, right? I mean, there's so many examples and there's too many to detail this, but it's the same voice that in December of 2021 told me to urgently move home. So, like you were saying, I was living in Santa Cruz, California. I'd been there for almost 25 years, living right on the beach in Monterey Bay. Like literally, the beach was across the street in this gorgeous resort neighborhood. And yeah, I was in Joshua Tree working on my book, Tragic Magic. And I always meditated and prayed before I would write. And that fateful evening in Joshua Tree, I'm told to urgently move home. Same voice, same felt sense of voice, same audible quality of voice. And I knew the truth of it. I literally came out of meditation, looked to see if I had enough bars on my phone to make a phone call because I'm in the middle of nowhere in the high desert. And the first call I made was to a friend in St. Louis who was a realtor. And then the second call was to my husband. And he was like, I'm not getting in the way of you and God. I don't care where we are. Yeah, let's go. So I literally flew out of Palm Springs the following morning to find where God, wanted me to be. And that was not St. Louis. And again, Andrea and I are looking and nothing feels resonant. I'm like, I don't think this is where God wants me to be, even though he told me to urgently move home. And I got quiet again, and the voice said Franklin County. I literally didn't know what that meant, though I had maybe an inkling that my father's country estate was in Franklin County, but not sure. So we broaden the MLS search. I find the home where I now live. And yeah, we had moved here by March. So I was told to urgently move home in December. I'm back in Missouri in March. And then 2 months later, I'm redesigning this huge building for my yoga center, or my come work on your shit center, as I prefer to call it. I'm teaching yoga on my back lawn as an act of service, trying to meet people in this new small town because I didn't know anybody. St. Louis is about an hour from where I live. And again, meditation and prayer is what I do every day. And on this fateful day in June of 22, I'm told to go to a doctor. I'm like, okay. So I look on Google and find Craig Holsom, a local country doctor who sees me the following day, which is great when you're in a small town. That's how it works. And what do doctors do? They listen to your heart, right? It's like one of the first things they do. And he listens to mine and he says, Regan, something's terribly wrong. We need to get you scheduled for an echocardiogram as quickly as possible. He heard this very significant murmur. So I got the echo the next day. Again, you can do that in a small town. And the following day, I learned I was dying and that I had a congenital heart defect and that my aortic valve had severely calcified and I needed open heart surgery as quickly as they could get it scheduled. Well, the reason God called me back to St. Louis, and you probably know this, Barnes Hospital, where I was born, where my oldest son was born, just happens to be one of the best places in the world for aortic valve replacement. So that happened on a Friday morning in July of 22. I was cleared from the ICU the following morning, which never happens. And I was home on Tuesday. I was like breaking records in there. And come Tuesday, my surgeon, who runs all of cardiothoracic surgery at Barnes, one of the best surgeons in the world, came to see me, patted my leg kind of playfully. He'd already told my husband and children this and said, Regan, there is no medical explanation of you. I can't explain how you were alive prior to this. It was the worst aortic valve he'd ever seen. I had less than zero point 0.2 centimeters for blood to flow through the
Good
valve,
Lord.
which is considered not capable of sustaining life.
Yeah, sure.
He's like, I don't know how you were alive, much less walking. I was teaching yoga yeah, on the grass. Um, and I said to him in response, I said, do you believe in Jesus Christ? I said, and I asked that from a non-traditional point of view. And he said, I do. I said, well, that's the only explanation I have. And then months later, after I went to a funeral for a Christian mystic friend of mine who died from the COVID vaccine, uh, I was, yeah, getting ready to go to the beach, and my husband had sweetly bought me a bathing suit with a zipper to cover up my scar. And yeah, I don't have clothes on. I'm in the bathroom and I'm looking at myself. I'm like, my scar looks different. Oh, and this is Palm Sunday, by the way. I'm so Christian, I had to look up on my phone what is Palm Sunday. But anyway, because of the funeral that was that day.
Yeah.
But anyway, big day. And what I see reflected in the mirror is that my scar had taken the shape of a cross.
Mm.
So, what I now know, I didn't know it as a kid. I didn't know it when I was told to repeat in the ninth grade or all the other directives I've gotten, which I detail in my book, Tragic Magic. It was Jesus, or as I prefer to call him, Yeshua. That's his name. We don't even get his name right. But anyway, that's a whole other podcast. um, yeah, it was his love, his intelligence, his looking out for me, that certainly saved my life. And now I've got this, symbol etched in my skin in case I forget.
Reagan, I have to tell you, even in our first conversation and just like in this conversation, one of the things I enjoy so much about talking to you is even though we're talking about subjects with, I think a lot of people could consider kind of whatever you want to call it, foo-foo or esoteric or whatever, there's zero pretension to you. And I just love that about you. It's just very straightforward and you've experienced what you've experienced. And I love the way that you share it. So for what it's worth, I really, really appreciate. I love genuine people, and you're very
Mm.
genuine. I try to be very genuine too. I am who I am, and that's either good enough for people or it's not good enough for people, and that's okay. I'm okay with either one. They get to make their own decisions up. So this is interesting, and I want to talk a lot about your book. We'll do that a little bit down the road because you've written a memoir where a lot of this is available for people that want to spend more time on it and read through it. And we'll talk about that. Um, but you've mentioned God and Jesus a few times, but you don't, I believe you don't actually practice an Orthodox religion, do you?
No, no. If you head to my Substack, one of the essays I'm probably most proud of there, and I'm new to Substack, was I love Jesus and I'm not a Christian.
Mm.
Uh, yeah, because Christianity, and in fact, I published this today, and it seems to be, I don't know, causing a little bit of a stir. Um, Christianity is more a reflection of Paul than it is of Jesus. And I don't know, I find that super curious that a guy that just proclaims to have had this experience of him on the road to Damascus that no one witnesses and claims that he's an apostle with basically a whole new doctrine that opposes almost everything that Jesus taught. Yeah, I mean, I've always said that, this tenet that he died for our sins. Well, don't you think he would have said so? And instead, as he's bleeding out, I mean, that would have been a dramatic opportunity to say, hey, I'm doing this for you.
Yeah, right.
Uh,
Pay
but, in,
attention.
but instead, he said, forgive them, for they know not what they do.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I'm a follower of Jesus, Yeshua, which is his name. Yeah, I think he is the most profound spiritual teacher this planet has known. And there's been some great ones, which again, newsflash, they all teach the same thing, which is your task is to learn how to embody the love of God,
Mm,
which to me is how that looks every day. My husband kids me that if we lived in St. Louis, like in the city, that we would have no money. I'd give it all away. I mean, I can't literally walk by another human being, and I don't care why you're on the street begging. If you're an addict, whatever, it doesn't matter to me. My job is to show mercy,
mm,
to look you in the eye, to speak to you, to ask you, hey, how'd you get here? And I tend not to have much cash on me ever, but I will always give that person whatever I've got. Yeah. So, yeah, even when I see a dead animal on the side of the road, which in Washington, Missouri, there's so many, like
yeah.
oh my God, like armadillos, like who
Right.
knew? They're all over the place. And I feel something. Like I feel their suffering. It impacts me. Um, but now I have enough discipline, enough integration of all of this that it doesn't break me like it broke my mom. I mean, when she died and she died poor, I learned of all the charities, all the people she was giving her limited amount of money to. Yeah.
Mm. How do you have conversations with people about faith when they're maybe you do, maybe you don't, I don't know. When they're curious about faith and they ask you for kind of guidance on how to pursue it or how to think about it.
Yeah, I direct them more not about what I say, about what they can do,
Mm,
which is to learn how to leave this busy place, come in to the heart. Jesus said the kingdom of God is within you, right? So I teach them how to anchor the breath through the heart and how to remember a moment in their lives, the most profound moment of love that they've known, and re experience the feeling of that. Start there and notice in remembering what that felt like and re experiencing that emotion, right? How hard it is for the average person to stay there in that, right? Instead, the monkey mind comes in and interrupts. And so it becomes, kind of this dance. Okay, I'm going to go back to my heart, right? So that's what I teach. A lot of that has been really researched and codified by the HeartMath Institute, where I, worked, golly, over 30 years ago.
mm,
But start there because it becomes kind of this energetic scaffolding. The more you can spend time consciously feeling the most elevated, most profound love you've known, that's going to take you places. And that will get you closer to God. Not God, not that God, not the God with the beard and the notepad, noting who's naughty and nice and
yeah.
yeah, not that God. But the God that Jesus spoke about, this quality of love that words don't work for. If you become disciplined in first learning how to embody the love that you've known and then asking for help, right? Asking your angels, your guides, master teachers, those that have been enlightened, that have come on this earth to teach us and are no longer here, but their energy is still here. I mean, the law of conservation in high school physics teaches you that, right?
Right.
Right? Energy can't be created or destroyed.
That's right.
Well, again, another news flash, your energy, every time your heart beats, you generate an electromagnetic wave of energy in a giant torus shape, actually. And that part of you, that essential part of you, it doesn't die. So yeah, that's what I would say. I mean, I don't know what I would say. It's usually informed by the moment, but I would bring them literally into their heart and remind them to feel love. And if they can't, like let's say they've never known that, which is certainly possible, most people can find something that they have felt gratitude about.
Hmm.
So the energy of gratitude can help and be that scaffolding to the energy of God. Yeah. Does that make sense?
It does. And I love that. I appreciate your response. The reason I ask is because so I'm not a religious person in any way. However, um, my wife always says, and I've been married to my wife for 32 years, so she knows me better than anybody. But she always says I'm actually the most religious person that she's ever met. But I'm not I don't practice any religion. I don't personally believe in like the God you talked about with the beard and the notebook and all the other stuff. Um, However, I'm going to talk out of the other side of my mouth now. I think that lack of faith is the biggest problem we have in society right now. And I think it's why so many people are lost. And I'm a huge proponent of finding whatever that higher meaning or purpose is. Like that's the entire point of our podcast, right? Is find the bigger meaning or purpose that drives you and follow that. And you're going to develop and live your best life possible. And so that's kind of what that's exactly why we do the podcast, and that's what it's all about. And so I was just curious. I appreciate you being able to articulate your views and how you approach it and how you talk to other people when that subject comes up, because I think it's very unique. There's plenty of people out there who will wave a Bible at you and say the answers are in here, and maybe some of them are, but like I don't know. I'm with you. Like the whole New Testament doesn't make a lot of sense. Like I've read the Bible just because I'm not in the religion or believe doesn't mean I haven't done a lot of studying, because I want to understand things, and I'm trying to improve myself all the time. Like I think that's such an important thing for us to do as people, is to continuously try to improve ourselves in different ways. And one of the best ways you can do that is by learning, like
Mm-hmm.
having conversations with other people. That's what I love about the podcast is I get to learn so much while our audience gets to listen to it too. So, anyhow, I really appreciate that perspective. And talk a little bit about what the business you have set up now, because it's kind of centered around all of those things we just talked about. And I'd love to hear you talk about that in your own words.
Oh, thanks. So I have this huge garage at the end of one of my driveways that when I got here, before I learned I was dying, I knew was going to be the place for me to bring, my teachings and my work. And I love, when I was in Silicon Valley, I literally had a 3-hour commute one way.
Mm.
So be able to walk down the driveway sometimes in my pajamas is fantastic. Yeah, so I teach yoga. I'm a yoga teacher. I have over 500 hours of training through the lineage of Baba Hari Das, who was a silent yogi who started basically a place in the Santa Cruz Mountains called the Mount Madonna Institute. It's part ashram, part school. Anyway, so to me, yoga, kind of like how Christianity misrepresents the teachings of Jesus and reflects Paul's point of view. Similarly, yoga has been co-opted by the West, and people think of it as fitness and maybe, to de-stress a bit. And they don't understand what the practicing of yoga is, which frankly is absolutely aligned with what Jesus taught. And again, that's no accident. There's 8 limbs of yoga. I mean, that's a whole other podcast. So I teach yoga here as an act of service, and I lead retreats here from time to time. I do HeartMath trainings here. I have private yoga clients. I have what I call inner life coaching clients. These are people that really want to truly become disciplined in a spiritual practice and find a practice that they can really commit to. Yeah, I mean, there was a yoga festival a couple of towns over, because I'm kind of in the heart of the Bible Belt.
Mm,
And I did a workshop in August all about how the teachings of yoga, the eight limbs of yoga, are an absolute mirror of what Jesus taught. Because I have church leaders here and priests who say it leads to Satan. Yeah, happy to take that on, and it
that's a
lights.
pretty big leap.
Oh yeah, and it lights me up, right? Taking that on, it's like, okay, this is part of my mission. And interestingly, when I was in college, I was a competitive public speaker and debater, traveled all over the country,
Mm,
was quite good at it. And for prose interpretation, I chose Letters from Earth by Mark Twain. Don't know if you've ever read it. You
I've
might
not.
want to. It's a satirical critique of Christianity. And
Ah,
I was traveling often into the Bible Belt. So I knew my prose interp was never going to I was never going to advance. And I didn't care. So this mission, even though I wasn't conscious of it at 18, lives in me strongly. And I just want to help people remember the truth of who they are and this kingdom, right? Like in my Saturday community yoga class, which is free, I don't charge. I'm always having a Dharma talk that draws from the yoga tradition and from either the New Testament or the Gnostic Gospels. But the New Testament, only Jesus's teachings, not
yeah.
not the rest of it, to show the alignment, right? And, people have their eyes closed, and I'll maybe speak of Luke 17:21, where Jesus says, the kingdom of God is within you, right? And I ask my students with their eyes closed, where is that kingdom? Everybody puts their hands over their heart.
Mm.
Nobody goes like this. So we have this sort of innate sense, even if we've never thought about it for a minute. If asked, we know the kingdom is here. And yet, what do we do in a typical day to foster that relationship? And to your point, it's not going to come from the written word of anyone's. I mean, yes, maybe that helps you, but it's about this direct relationship.
Yeah. You had talked earlier about, and this ties directly to what we were just talking about. I know it seemed like I just said, yeah, and moved changing subjects. I'm not at all.
It's
Um,
okay.
you had talked previously about uh, uh, God and faith, and if you can't channel and or experience that and embody that love, then gratitude is a good place to start. I think I agree with you. I think that's like a good first step for a lot of people that are kind of want to take a different approach than they've taken previously in their life. How do you teach people to experience and show gratitude? Because I know on your website, it's one of the things that you talk about. I'd love for you to talk about it here.
Well, sure. Make a short list of moments in time when you experienced gratitude for someone or something. And it's not about thinking about gratitude. I mean, a gratitude journal, sure. Okay. It's about the felt sense, it's about the energetics of gratitude. That's where the power is. So I teach people to feel it, not think about it. I mean, maybe you have to think about it to feel it. Okay, that's fine. But it's not a mental process, it's an emotional one.
Mm,
And, everything's energy, including what you choose to think and what you feel. There's an energetic quality to it. And some energies will lead you more easily to the ultimate energy, this thing we call God, and other energies like frustration, right? Resentment, anger, like all the things that it's like the typical American emotional diet, right? Just turn on the television or look at social media. Um, well, there's an energetic consequence to that. There's a biomedical consequence to that. There's a cognitive consequence to that. Because again, another newsflash, your heart and your brain are connected through the vagus nerve, and the heart actually sends more information to the brain than the other way around. So the energy that you choose to embody, because by the way, it is a choice, matters a lot. It matters for your health, right? Like there's a biochemical consequence to anger. And in fact, a 5-minute expression of anger, whether you're right or not, is inconsequential, impacts your immune system for over 6 hours. Yeah, so feel love, feel gratitude, and that'll take you some places. And what I also teach in my newly titled Living the Principles course, which used to be called Ready to Awaken, I teach people how to connect to that energy of love and gratitude and use it kind of as an energetic chaperone to travel to all the wounded places within. Because what most people don't understand is that your emotional reaction to something, your negative emotional reaction, is a call from your unhealed self. People don't realize that, somebody else could experience the exact same thing and have a completely different point of view and reaction to it,
Mm-hmm.
right? So the difference is the wounding that needs tending. Like my inner toddler, whose first sentence was, "I want to do it all by myself. I'm not even 2, and I know that I can't rely on anyone." Right? So that hyper, independence, which, people think is amazing. Look, she's so competent. She's so smart. She's so independent. It was all a trauma response.
Mm.
Right. And so we need to bring that energy of love to those wounded places of self. We need to know who they are. We need to know what their point of view is. We need to unpack all the traumatic memories and what the imprint was, the belief system, the ways you coped, all of it. And the energy of love is the only thing that'll make it different.
So it reminds me of one of my favorite quotes, which is by Marcus Aurelius. It says, "The obstacle is the way." Like you cannot change your life without going towards the things that are blocking you from getting to the life that you want. And that can be actual physical things blocking you. Maybe you've got a terrible home environment or a work environment or relationship or something, that's actually physically blocking you. It could be mental, it could be emotional, but until you figure out what those are and deal with those things, it's going to consistently kind of hold you back. It just popped into my head when you were talking about it. So like to me, it just makes perfect sense what you're talking about. It seems to me that a lot of people are afraid to, and you talked about this earlier about term not being afraid of things, just generally, right?
Right.
I'm similar. People will say to me, "You're brave," and I'm like, I don't think that's true, because in order to show courage, you have to have fear, and I'm not overcoming fear and doing what I'm doing. I think fearless is probably fair in most instances, but courage does not really a good word is not really a good word to describe me. But I think a lot of people do have fear. Um, what do you think drives that fear in them, and what's a good first step to start dealing with that fear and overcoming it?
Well, I think there's only really two things going on: fear and love. Think of it like on a spectrum,
Like binary, like zeros and ones in computers?
Yeah, kind of.
Mm.
Yeah. And I think what we're truly afraid of, though we may think it's X, Y, and Z, is the separation that we feel from our divine nature, separation from source. I think that's what drives most of it. And it's fear of annihilation, right? Fear of death. I mean, look at what people did as a response to COVID. I mean, talk about critical thinking no longer happening. I mean, arrows in grocery stores telling you which way to walk. Like, come on. And then you speak the truth of that, or you elect not to get the jab, and you're going to kill grandma. And now we know they didn't even study the impact that the vaccine had on transmission. Anyway, that's a whole other podcast. But yeah, I mean, I think fear, the source of it is perceived separation from divine source.
Mm. Yeah, that's interesting. And I'm not trying to go down the COVID rabbit hole either, but I share every single sentiment you have expressed. Like immediately when they started talking about this, I told my wife, I said, this has absolutely nothing to do with the disease. This is about trying to control people through fear. And it's a power grab by people in positions of authority. And we're witnessing the degradation of our society happening right in front of us. And people buy into this simply because they're scared and they're not thinking critically. I did not and will not get the COVID vaccine. I refused. I would have absolutely been fired had I worked at a place that said, take the vaccine or get fired. I would have said, fire me. That's fine. I'm not putting something in my body that is a completely unknown quantity. Like there's been absolutely no way to research what, like, maybe it's awesome, maybe it's terrible. There was no way for them to know either way. None whatsoever. I'm not risking that. No way.
No, I mean, I know it'll sound conspiratorial, but I trust my intuitive intelligence and the access I have. It was a dry run for the digital surveillance that's coming. So yeah, and I won't participate in that either. I mean, sadly, I was going to go to Madrid. My best friend lives there. I was all set to go on a yoga retreat with my teacher Hannah Muse, who I love, in Greece. And, beginning October 12th, in order to enter the EU, they're collecting all sorts of things that glad I went to Europe a few times. I guess as a remote viewer, I could leave my body and go to Greece. Hadn't thought of that until just now. But yeah, no, I mean, I can't stop it from happening.
Right.
But I can choose not to participate.
Yeah, you and I are so aligned on this particular subject. It's already happening in China. There's already a social score in China whereby if you fall too low on the social scale, they can literally stop access to your bank account. They can stop you from working. They can stop you from buying food. It's insanity. And I don't understand why people cannot see what is happening right in front of us. Like
it's happening in the UK right now. The right to work is predicated on digital ID. The Bank of Vietnam, basically deleted the bank accounts of over 86 million people because they refused biometric collection. So, yeah.
Yeah.
It's the next thing. And, I mean, not that everything in the Bible is true. I don't believe. I mean, I think it is reflects an editorial process. But John, when he was exiled on that island and, so connected to God and wrote Revelation and, talked about the mark of the beast, well, it's already here. It's already here. I mean, I see people in Whole Foods taking, their palm to pay for their groceries. I'm just like, people.
Well, clearly we're going to have you back on and do an episode just about these particular things I want to take away, because I still absolutely want to spend some time on Tragic Magic, which is the book that you wrote in your memoir. But one last question on this whole subject. If someone's interested, and maybe we could do it later, but you tell me, if someone's interested in working with you, do they need to physically be in Missouri? I know you've got the website and I know there's materials on the website, but if someone wants to talk to you about their particular situation and see if interacting with you can help them? Do you do things online? Does it have to be in person? How does it work with like I
Yeah,
understand all of it, I guess, the yoga, the coaching, any of
sure.
it.
Yeah, I've not done private yoga sessions online, though I could. So on regancaruthers.com, in the inner life coaching section of that website, people can schedule a free discovery call with me. It's a half hour. You tell me your goals. I tell you how I think I'm going to approach it because it's intuitive. It's not like I have a
Follow these 6 steps and you're brand new.
oh no. No, right? Yeah, I don't take on a lot of clients. Let everybody know that. In that I'm doing a lot of writing right now, and I just, if you really want to be disciplined with me and commit, then yes. But if you're just kind of, I don't know, not quite ready, then it's probably not a fit. But in that discovery call, I want to encourage people to do that. And you tell me your goals. And I tell you kind of in the moment what I believe, how I'm going to approach it. And we feel if there's resonance. And if there is, then yeah, inner life coaching is what we would do. And yeah, we figure out how, people say, well, how many sessions? I'm like, sorry, have no idea. People, there's spiritual teachers out there that say if you do these 5 things, this will happen. It could be a million things. And any spiritual teacher that quantifies things like that, run.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah. So, yeah, so that's one way. They can follow me on Substack. I'm doing a lot of evocative writing there, and I think they would, gain some value from that. Certainly read my memoir. That might inspire them. Uh, but yeah, that's how. I mean, the Living Principles course that I teach face to face here in the center, I am going to bring online. I'm in the process of outlining all of that, where I'll have, video components and it'll be as if you're with me. I mean, as much as I can try to emulate that in an online learning environment, it would be, asynchronous. You would just do the work uh, self-paced on your own. And maybe I'll have a component where for an additional amount of money, there's a coaching piece to it. I haven't figured it all out, but that's coming.
Very cool. Well, we'll have, just so listeners don't have to be writing things down furiously, we'll have all those links down in the show notes. So it'll be very easy for you to get in touch with Reagan, and you can just go down there. One thing I should have mentioned this when you talked about your incision transforming into a cross. I don't think a lot of people understand that they only make vertical incisions when they do chest surgery. They don't do any incisions horizontally across your chest. So for that to convert from a horizontal, or I'm sorry, a vertical scar to a cross, that's pretty remarkable.
Yeah, when I shared it with my surgeon, so I had come to the Center of Advanced Medicine to meet with my cardiologist for my 1 year follow up. And I don't know, I just intuitively knew my surgeon was in the office. And I said to my cardiologist, who I didn't really have the same kind of connection with, he was kind of assigned to me, after the surgery. I mean, wonderful guy, but,
Mm.
and I was like, is Dr. Damiano here? And he said, yeah, he is. I said, I need to see him. Well, turns out my surgeon was literally across the hall in this room with a bunch of other surgeons, these big workstations, and the vibe is like super intense because I think they're all charting. And I,
Mm.
pop in my little my face. I'm like, Dr. Damiano, it's Reagan. I didn't even say my last name. He knew who I was. And his eyes get so big. He goes, oh my God, you look amazing. I'm like, well, thanks. And I said, I have something to show you. And I, reminded him of our conversation, where I said, do you believe in Jesus? And he's like, Reagan, how could I forget? Because I'm like this medical miracle, right? I mean, maybe he's talking to people about it.
There's case study, right? Yeah.
Yeah. And so I just bare my chest and tears start rolling down his face.
Mm.
And then the other surgeons are like, Dr. Damiano is crying with this woman who's bearing her chest. So they all stand up and they're encircling me now, looking. And he looks at them and he says, have you ever seen anything like it? And they all shake their head no. And he said, well, Regan, that's another miracle. It's a vertical cut.
Yeah. I just wanted to call that out for listeners because I don't think I did a good job of signifying the importance of what you said. So yeah, that's very cool. And I really appreciate you sharing it. So let's talk about tragic magic. So memoir. What talk a little bit about your motivations. Obviously, you've lived this stuff and you've changed your life and you're doing things that you're really passionate about. You're following the voice, which has always been a good thing for you.
Mm-hmm.
How'd the book come about?
I was told to write it.
Mm,
Like to your point, I'd already processed my life.
yeah, right.
Like, I was told to write it. So again, I do what I'm told. And it was really easy. I mean, I felt really held in it. I mean, I could probably write a sequel to it because there's a lot I didn't include. Not on purpose. It was just this, kind of flow. And now the more conversations I have about my life and the wisdom I hold and some of the miracles I've known, et cetera, I'm like, there's more to say. So I've been directed actually to write a second book. So yeah, I looked at it and what that voice had said to write my story as an act of service, right? People are going to relate to the messiness,
Mm,
not to the specific,
right.
but to the mess. And I think they'll be really inspired by how I healed, and I don't mean healing from the surgery. That's a whole other thing. How I healed emotionally
Yep.
from the trauma I've known. Yeah, I mean the feedback I get from readers. I mean it's not a bestseller by any stretch, but the people that have read it are really moved by it. And yeah, I didn't write it to make money. I mean, nobody should write a book for that reason. I did it to care for other people, to say, you know what, it can get better. But what I, will also say, in order for it to get better and to change, guess what? Another newsflash, you have to change.
Hmm.
So, yeah, I'm hoping people read it and get inspired and begin to do the work. Uh, there's a moment in the book where I said, imagine if we all walked around with poster board affixed to our bodies front and back, listing our traumas like a grocery list. We'd treat each other, I think, differently, with more compassion, I think. We'd probably be kinder. And we would see from the list how much we all have in common. I mean, I don't know if you've ever done that, like in a group setting where, a traumatic event is named. Let's say it's rape or child abuse or mental illness or alcoholism, whatever. And each time that said, people move closer to the center of the circle. I have never facilitated that where there's anybody left behind.
Hmm.
And what do, right? We're not taught what to do,
Right.
And again, another newsflash, if therapy worked, we'd all be different. I'm not saying it doesn't work, but it tends not to work, and that you just go and talk about the things, just reinforcing the neural circuits that you have around the things
Yep.
and never learning how to liberate yourself from it. And it's a quality of love, at least this is how I've learned to heal, that you learn how to bring to yourself, because it all needs your love and your acceptance.
Yeah, it's funny to me that first I really appreciate how you put that. And look, I'm trying to think of the right way to say this. I believe in and am a fan of therapy so in so much that you need to get daylight on your challenges. You can't just keep them to yourself. So if you go to therapy to get daylight on those, I'm all for it. Continuing to talk about the same things over and over and over again without taking action to move past them, I don't see value in that. That's just my own opinion. And I sell groceries for a living. I didn't stay at Holiday Inn Express last night. I'm not a therapist. I'm not a psychologist. I'm not any of those things, but I'm also not an idiot. And I have been very successful at developing really good relationships with people of all sorts of income levels, of all sorts of gender, of all sorts of socioeconomic and racial and religious backgrounds. I can relate to people because I don't judge. I try to understand what drives them, and that helps me understand why they think the way they think and why they act the way they act. And it's not my place to say if it's right or wrong. Now, if somebody's hurting someone, like I'm not, someone's going to be whatever, smacking around their partner, then yeah, I would say, hey, you can't do that. That's not acceptable. You got to quit doing that. But short of those things, it's not your place to judge people's choices. It's not your place to weigh in. And it's perfectly acceptable to listen and acknowledge without endorsing or condoning. Like, I don't think that's hard to do. But so many people have a challenge with that. I think it's a big challenge in the world. Being able to, like you and I, relating to each other, right? This doesn't feel hard to me in any way, shape, or form. And uncertain that not every word that comes out of my mouth, you go, yes, I agree with that 100%. And vice versa. Generally, I do. But that's not the point. The point is, look at how much knowledge I've gained from speaking with you. Like,
Mm.
that makes me a better person. It makes me think about things differently. It allows me to consider all of those things that you've talked about in a way that I've never thought about them. And how does that not make me better? That to me is how you get better as a person, by exposing yourself to new things and absorbing new ideas and then processing them and see how they sit with you. How do they resonate with you? How do you feel about things? Um, and I'm not sure in mass how we do that as a society, because like we talked earlier about social scores and digital tracking, which you can call us crazy, you can call us conspiracy theorists, you can call us whatever you want. That is 100% in process right now. It is 100% the goal of the Illuminati, or whatever you want to call this group of people who wants to control everything. And I will not I will not participate in it. I will die on my feet before I'll live on my knees. 100%.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's spiritual warfare. It's been
Mm,
going on since the dawn of time. And this is why understanding the truth of what God is and the energetics of that and how to embody that, that's the solution. That's the solution for your own healing,
mm.
at a very microscopic level, but it's also the global solution. And all the sacred books have a happy ending. So I think we will get there. Certainly not in our lifetime, but ultimately we will. Ultimately, people will awaken to the divinity that lives within them and know how to hold it, no matter what, no matter what. And so, someone like Jesus, not, like the true guy, like read the Gnostic Gospels, read the things that they hid in a jar that were found in 1945 in the Egyptian desert. Just like today, the information that's being censored or suppressed is probably the truth. Well, that was true
Yes.
then. And we don't know who hid these sacraments, but they were hidden for a reason, because the dark magicians of the time, what I would characterize as the early Roman Catholic Church, wanted to make sure that the truth of what Jesus taught was not the truth that was disseminated across the empire. So yeah, the Gnostic Gospels, that's where I find the truth. And I draw a lot of comfort from that.
Well, it's really hard to control people that think for themselves, isn't
You can't. Well, and that's why I always say if you know two things, that you're divine and eternal, you can't be controlled.
Yep.
You don't have any fear of death, right? Like, so from a digital surveillance perspective, oh, you're going to cut me off from X, Y, and Z. Don't care.
Right.
Doesn't matter. I mean, I don't know if I'll be back. I kind of, it's a big universe. I'm not sure where I'll go next. If I have to come back, I will. But yeah, we'll see.
Yeah. It's funny. I have never thought about kind of life and spirit as it relates to the laws of thermodynamics that you talked about, and the laws of energy and entropy. That's a really great way to think about things. And it's like that's a great scientific way to explain the truth.
Hmm.
Like energy, it cannot be created or destroyed. There's a finite amount of it, and it continues. It just changes forms. And I love that. That's a great way to think about it.
Yeah, I really do credit my time at HeartMath because what Doc, the founder of HeartMath, did beautifully was take this ancient wisdom, right? The efficacy of love, right? And prove it, right? Prove. So in the American Journal of Cardiology in the 90s, they published a study showing the difference in heart rate variability, those feeling gratitude contrasted with those feeling frustration. Um, so all he was trying to do was to make this wisdom more available to the Western mind. And the way that he languaged things and the way that I brought heart math to executive audiences, I think informed how I'm able to do it now. Kind of that grounded sensibility that you say that I have when I speak about esoteric things or things that maybe if somebody else said it, it might sound crazy, somehow doesn't. I do think that's a gift that I have. So thank you for naming it.
For sure. Like, yeah, look, I call them like I see them. I don't pull punches. Speaking about gratitude, so I think people overcomplicate how they think about that. And, I have millions of little moments in my life that they'll kind of churn through my head, and every once in a while one will pop up. But it's such little things like, um, I don't know, a month or two ago, we had a bunch of people at our house, and my wife was sitting close to me on the couch, and I wanted to tell her something, but I didn't want to say it in front of a bunch of other people. So I was texting her, and she glanced over and saw me texting, but she couldn't see exactly what I was texting or who I was texting, but she could tell that it was very personal and that I was happy about what I was doing. And then she also saw an emoji on the text thread. And if you put a gun to my head and said, Joe, send an emoji or I'm going to shoot you, you would have to shoot me. I don't know how they work. I don't know where they are on my phone. I personally have never sent an emoji in my life. So she knew someone had sent it to me. And she was like, who would be sending him emojis and who is he texting? Well, I was texting her because I wanted to tell her something. And so I sent the text. She gets the text and reads the text. And she immediately texts me back, who were you texting? And I was so confused. I'm like, you just got the text from me. It was, I was thinking this because we couldn't talk. There was other people around. So as soon as we were by ourselves, she goes, you didn't answer me. Who were you texting? I said, I'm so confused. I was texting you. Actually before that, she had taken my phone and was looking through my phone, trying to find my last text, which was to her. But she, she, she said, I saw an emoji and that was the last person you were texting. So I scrolled up and she had sent me like the kissy face emoji as a response to a previous text. I said, it's you nugget. I was texting you. And we had a good laugh about it because she's like, I knew I was right. I knew you were really into whoever you were texting. It was me. I'm like, yes, who else is it going to be? It's been 33 years. What the hell are we doing here? But those little moments are so much fun, and they just show your commitment level and your love of another person. That's what gratitude is about to me, is appreciating those moments when they happen in
Mhm.
life. And uh like I try to start every day by getting outside first thing. I try to get outside and around trees or grass or something like that. And just appreciating as the sun comes up and those sun rays hitting your skin, that's gratitude. It's not more complicated than that. And I think a lot of people confuse it like it's this deep and really difficult concept, and it's the exact opposite. At least that's the way I think about it. I'd love to hear your perspective on that, though.
Yeah, but again, like I said earlier, it's not about thinking about it. It's
Yeah,
about feeling it.
that's right.
That's where the magic happens. Um, yeah. So, yeah, of course. And, having the discipline to be more aware of all the blessings and to feel conscious gratitude for whatever. I mean, even could be just like your favorite ice cream, right?
Mm,
Like, oh my God, like someone made this,
right.
right? That's remarkable. Or I was just in Chicago. And if you ever go to Chicago, like do the architectural tour. I mean, I did it years ago, but just looking at a building, like human beings figured out how to do that. That's amazing,
It is, isn't it?
right? And to feel something about it, right? To feel, the gratitude for human ingenuity, capacity for innovation. But it can be very simple how the sun feels on your face.
Yeah. Yep. And you're right. It's the feeling, it's not the thought of it, but it's in that's why it drives me insane when people are always taking pictures or videos with their phones. It's like you're in the moment, and instead of living the moment, you're trying to record it. Why don't you just experience it?
Right.
That's where you're happiest. That's where life is the most fulfilling. And you're like intentionally skipping it to try to record it on a goddamn electronic device. What are you doing? Experience it. Like live, truly live the moments of your life. That's when you're going to be happy.
Right.
So at least that's the way I think about it for what it's worth. But
Yeah, I'm glad I lived at a time when none of this existed.
me too.
Um, Life was better, certainly. And I think we'll get back there eventually. But yeah, people are so distracted and manipulated and not present.
Yeah, I think we're starting to see the worm turn a little bit. I think you're starting to see people place higher value on relationships and experiences, which are the truly great things in life, and turn away from the material things or chasing the career or all the other things that go with that. And look, I get it. I'm not stupid. Everybody's got to eat. You got to have a roof over your head. You got to get from point A to point B. So you need some vehicle in which to do that. I'm not, I'm a capitalist. Totally got it. My point is, if you allow those things to be the most important things in your life, you're not going to have the life that you could have if you focus on relationships and experiences. If you put those things at the center of your life, you're much more likely to have a really rewarding and fulfilling life.
Yeah,
So,
I mean, I know we're hard on the millennials, but I think the millennials are a very wise generation.
yep.
Um, and I don't know, encourage more people are buying flip phones and getting rid of their smartphones. And that's being led by the millennials. Yeah, we think that they're not ambitious or X, Y, and Z. I think it's more they don't want to participate in a corrupt system.
Yeah, I think that's right. At least from my perspective. That seems right. Um,
Yeah.
well, so look, I ask a lot of questions. We cover a lot of territory. I don't ever want to miss something good simply because I didn't ask the right questions or I didn't give the opportunity for whoever our guest is on that particular day to talk about something that I didn't bring up. And so I always try to open it up and say, is there anything I haven't asked you about? Or is there anything that we haven't talked about that's important to you that you want to talk about while we're in front of the audience?
No, I don't think so. I mean, just want to reinforce the importance, not just to global civilization, but to individual health, uh, to learn how to be in conscious relationship with God, not God of institutions, not God of doctrine, but the energy of this profound love that carries with it such a vast intelligence. I mean, words just don't work for it. But that's the key. And we all need to figure out how to get there. And I'm just trying to play, my role. Like I said, Yeshua is my teacher, Mary Magdalene too. But yeah, we need to figure that out.
I love it. That's a great note for us to leave it on. Regan, thank you so much for joining us here at Salty Ginger Talk. There's no way to describe how much I enjoyed our conversation.
Oh,
Thank you for joining me.
thank you, Salty Ginger.
Really appreciate it. You have a great night.
You too, sweetie. Bye.
Okay. Bye bye. That was awesome, Reagan. Loved it.
Thanks.
Absolutely loved it.
Yeah. I love your questions and I love your heart.
Oh, I bet, but appreciate the kind words. Like I said, I get to learn so much, and I love having people on that don't think like I think at all because it helps me learn and it helps me kind of think differently about things. And your ability to kind of talk about I meant like I don't say things I don't mean, just and I don't
Right.
do it for the podcast, but there's no pretentiousness to what you're talking about, and it's extremely genuine. And those are the kind of people I love interacting with because they make me better. They help me
Oh,
learn, they help me think different, and that's something I'm always very interested in. So I think that really will resonate with the audience when we put it out there too, and I think they'll get the same thing. So
oh, thanks. Yeah, you remind me of my husband in that he acts as if, I mean, the choices he makes, how he goes about relationships at work, how he, takes care of people that he meets along the way. It's as if he's got this devout spiritual practice, right? This conscious relationship with God. And it's like, oh, maybe you're even more evolved than me in that you don't really need it. Like you can just show up that way. So, yeah, just keep doing what you're doing because the quality of the energy of you is exactly what the world needs, fearlessness and certainty of what you know to be true.
well, yeah, I appreciate that. One of the things I know to be true is I don't know everything, and you can learn so much from talking to people. I mean, I think there are some universal truths like just be decent to other people, be a decent person, and help other people be decent people. If we all just did that, think about how much better the world would be. Like, I don't think it's more complicated than that. At least from my perspective, it's not. So,
Well, that's what I mean, just that clear integrity, right? Like just do good work. And
mm.
that's what Jesus said. Like just God, we've really screwed that all up. He's like the kingdom of God is within. Be kind, treat other people like yourself. Love your God with all your heart. Love others. Love your neighbor as yourself and love your enemies. That's the harder part.
Yeah.
But, yeah, we've really screwed that up.
The part that's so hard for me to understand on that is that's very easy to understand from my perspective. It's very easy to understand, and the where people go wrong is they think you're doing it for your enemies. You're not doing it for them. You're doing it for you. Oh my gosh, figure this out. It's a gift to yourself. If you don't harbor that anger and that resentment and that hatred, that energy goes back out into the world and becomes something much better. And it frees up room for better and more positive energy in you. You don't do it for your enemies, you do it for yourself. That's what it's about. And that
Right.
just gets lost on people. It's wild to me.
Yeah, like well, that's one thing we didn't talk about, but just like forgiveness,
Mm,
that's an act of self-care. It's this idea that what you did is so not okay. I'm choosing not to be connected to it anymore. And the way I liberate that is to forgive you.
yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, it'll eat you alive if you don't. Like literally eat you alive.
Hmm.
It's like drinking poison and expecting your enemy to die. You're the one that's gonna it's, I don't know. It's pretty crazy. So
Where do
but
you live again? Where are you?
I'm in Cleveland, Ohio.
Oh, that's right. That's right.
Yep.
Okay. Well, the Apple just announced digital ID now on the phone
Oh, good Lord.
like 3 days ago.
No, I
Um,
meant every word. I'd love to have you back on at some point if you're willing to do it to talk kind of through the logic or lack thereof that happened during the COVID era and all of these things that we know are coming down the road. So if you're up for that,
well, yeah, and that was all directed from that same voice.
mm,
The voice said, do not do this under any circumstances, but don't get in the way of somebody else's choice.
yeah, that's exactly. So it's funny because my wife and all three of my sons actually got the COVID vaccine,
So did
and
my husband.
I didn't. I drove my wife to the appointment.
I did too. I drove 3 hours to some godforsaken place in the Central Valley of California for him to get it. Yeah.
Which she regrets now. My wife regrets getting it, but it is what it is. Like you can't unring the bell. So,
Oh, yeah.
um,
And all the turbo cancer, like my husband's brother's wife. I mean, she's not going to survive the cancer that she's got.
mm,
And I don't know how many, she was one of those that got, I don't know how many
yeah,
things.
yeah. Our oldest son developed diabetes about a year after he got his. He's a healthy 29-year-old kid, and his pancreas quit working. I
Yep.
find it very hard to believe those aren't linked.
Oh, they are. Yeah, it's all linked. And again, it's all by design, there's no accident. And the fact that 80% of people globally elected to do it. So imagine the confidence that these monsters have
Yeah,
around digital surveillance and ID. It's all going to be marketed as convenience. That's how, Apple is marketing it. And, Peter Thiel and Palantir. I mean, just these are the villains, you know, these are yeah, just like the dark priests long, long ago.
yep.
Yeah, yeah, it's really something else.
We'll stay connected because when we have to flee for our own safety, we can do it together with a small group of people that believe what we believe that have resisted this whole thing when everybody else is rounded up.
Well, that's why I love Franklin County. You know
Hmm.
how long Franklin County was locked down?
I don't
During 10 days.
really.
They were like, we trust Jesus, even though they don't really know Jesus.
Yeah.
Everybody's got like a sign in their yard, I trust in Jesus, which I think is really sweet, even though they, elect more to follow the doctrine of Paul. But anyway, yeah, they were just like, no. And I remembered the national news like making fun of people going to the Lake of the Ozarks in Missouri
I remember that.
because people were just like, not going to do it, not playing. Uh, so yeah, I mean, I think that's another reason God called me back and told me not to move to St. Louis, told me to move here and found this house where I've got 10 acres and my own water. None of that is by accident.
Hmm. Yep.
All right. That
Well,
was fun.
I
Thank
love it.
you.
I'll send you the link and we'll do something in the like first quarter of next year on the stuff we just talked about. So thank you so much for coming on, Reagan. I loved it.
And do you have everything you need from me?
I think so. I think you'd already sent us. We just need a headshot and then anything you want. Obviously, we've got your website and anything else like a link to your book. We put all that in the show notes. So if you just want to shoot us an email with that stuff, I think your episode airs like early January is where we're at. But so you got time.
Okay. And do you read stuff on Substack?
I'm going to join Substack. I'm not. I'm not on Substack right now. It has occurred to me that so many people that I'm really interested in and respect are on Substack. I need to get on there. So,
Yeah, it's just a free app.
yeah,
I'm enjoying it so much, not just contributing, but long form writing to talk about important things is so much more impactful than short form video on Instagram,
for sure.
I mean, I have a lot of stuff on Instagram. I'm not participating anymore, but yeah. So yeah, you'll like my essay that I published today. If I get crucified or stoned, you'll know why. But yeah, it felt really good to share what I shared today, which was, what if Paul was the false prophet that Jesus warned his disciples about?
Yeah, just don't say anything about Islam because I don't want them to come for you.
I don't. Yeah.
Stick to
I,
Christianity.
yeah, I'll stick with Christianity. All right. Thanks, honey. I
Thanks,
appreciate
Reagan. Have a great
it. Okay.
week. All right.
Okay, you too.
Bye
Bye.
bye. Okay, guys, there you go. So I did not oversell Reagan in any way, shape, or form. Love her ability to talk about a lot of things or subjects that may seem controversial to some people, may seem outlandish to some people. None of it seemed controversial or outlandish to me in any way, shape, or form. And I love her ability to kind of walk us through how she's experienced these different things in life and how they've kind of informed her on what path to follow and what steps to take. I love her talking about the voice that she hears and that guides her on her decisions. That when she follows the voice, good things happen, and when she doesn't, they don't. And love that you guys have a chance to connect with her on her website around coaching. You can read her book. She's on Substack, and I'm going to check her out on Substack as well because I have not looked that up yet. But I stayed on with Reagan after we did the podcast and talked to her about that a little bit. So loved it. We'll have her back on to talk about the some of the things we talked about on a surface level, like the decisions and policies and approaches, reactions to the COVID pandemic, and some of the other things that we know are coming in the world that may other people may think we're crazy, but we know that we're right. So thank you, Reagan. We'll have you back on here pretty soon. James puts it up over here every day. Head over to our website, saltygingertalk.com. All of our podcast episodes are available there. Links to all our social media accounts are available there. We publish a newsletter every weekday you can subscribe to there. Make sure you like, share, comment, subscribe to our podcast on whatever platform you consume it on. We have awesome people on that teach you so much and share their experiences so that you can incorporate those learnings into your life and build a life of meaning and purpose for you. We have great guests on all the time. They have great messages. You don't want to miss any of that. So make sure you catch our next episode. We'll see you there. James.